Dark Psychology Unleashed is your ultimate guide to mastering the art of human manipulation. This comprehensive book offers you a step-by-step roadmap to explore the depths of the human mind, equipping you with the essential tools to analyze people, exert influence, and ethically achieve your desired outcomes.
Hello, this is Eric Holt, and you are listening to Dark Psychology. Master human manipulation using mind control, covert NLP, and subliminal persuasion to learn how to analyze people with body language, speed reading techniques, and hypnosis. Provided to you by United Audiobooks. I hope you enjoy my audiobook. Now, let us begin. Introduction. Do you want to delve deeper into the darker side of a human's personality and behavior? Then studying dark psychology will give you clarity in that area. Yes, this topic may be kind of new, but you can now find a lot of people who are interested in it and are trying to explore and uncover its complexities. If you want to learn about dark psychology, take note that it has broad coverage. It encompasses a lot of areas, even those related to serial killers, criminal behaviors, self-destructive tendencies, and manipulation. With this very wide coverage, one can safely assume that this field is so fascinating that it will uncover things not only about yourself, but also humans in general. One crucial reminder about the practice and use of dark psychology, though, is that it is inherently unethical. This is the reason why you need proper and adequate guidance before you should start using it. The goal is to widen your knowledge about it first, so you can use it without endangering yourself and others. You should be knowledgeable on its proper and effective use to prevent the dangers usually associated with it, including emotional and psychological manipulation, and worst, crimes. Fortunately, this book about dark psychology is now around to help you gain clarity and enlightenment on the many things related to this field. It holds a lot of valuable information regarding dark psychology, thereby increasing your chance of mastering it anytime soon and ensuring that you get to use it to your advantage without neglecting good morals and ethics. Now, it's time to begin your journey to understanding dark psychology and how to use it properly. Dark psychology. What it is and how does it work? Most people have already heard about psychology and what it means. It is basically the field of study that tackles human behaviors. What many people are unfamiliar with and perceive as mysterious is one facet of psychology called dark psychology. Some even find it creepy because it comes with the word dark. Dark psychology actually captured the attention and interest of people nowadays because of the mystery revolving around it. It centers on persuasion, mind control, and manipulation, which is why it also comes with a lot of misunderstanding and mystery as it tends to cover the darker facets of humans. It was even discovered that it applies persuasion, coercion, and manipulation as a means of harming the recipient. Many also describe it as a natural means of causing emotional or psychological abuse and manipulation. While it is kind of disturbing and harmful, the proper use of it can still be expected to have positive effects on the practitioner and the target. All it takes is to understand the ethical and harmless way of practicing dark psychology. How does dark psychology work? In general, dark psychology refers to a new and interesting field of study which revolves around understanding how people use persuasion and manipulation tactics to reach their goals. This topic is kind of controversial as it is possible to use it either for good or evil. To master this field, though, set a constant reminder about the importance of being extremely cautious in its practice. It is because this tool, when used irresponsibly and carelessly, will turn out to be uncontrollable, powerful, and dangerous. The main premise behind the practice of dark psychology is to understand and exploit human psychology's weaknesses. It involves gaining a full understanding of the actual feelings, emotions, and thoughts of those around you. You can then use these details to manipulate and persuade them to do what you want. Dark psychology, therefore, has plenty of uses, one of which is to convince potential clients to avail of your offers. Practicing dark psychology can also go as dark and as intense as persuading someone to commit crimes or do anything evil. Note, though, that while some dark psychology practitioners use this technique for wicked and evil purposes, others are reasonable and responsible enough that they only use it for the general good. For instance, various dark psychology tactics are now being used by therapists for patients who want to overcome their phobias and fears. Police officers also practice dark psychology every now and then to extract information and confessions from witnesses, suspects, and criminals. Is dark psychology the same as psychology of manipulation? Yes. In fact, the psychology of manipulation is the main premise behind the practice of dark psychology. In other words, it involves the use of manipulation tactics and techniques to influence and control the attitudes and behaviors of those around you. You can use such techniques in exploiting the vulnerabilities and weaknesses of your target. You can also use it to enjoy personal benefits and gains. One key fact about manipulation is that it is covert and subtle. With that said, you may have a hard time detecting whether you have already been manipulated. It encompasses a lot of techniques, including deception, cognitive distortions, and emotional manipulation. Such techniques aim to make the target develop doubts, uncertainties, and confusion in their minds. At a glimpse, here are the most commonly used dark psychology tactics designed to exploit the biases, cognitive restrictions, and vulnerabilities of people. Emotional manipulation, which makes use of different feelings and emotions to manipulate and influence the behaviors and thoughts of your target. Social influence, which utilizes authority, peer pressure, and conformity as a means of persuading others to stick to specific behaviors and attitudes. Cognitive distortions, which involves the use of logical fallacies, selective attention, and misinformation to shape and form the perception and beliefs of others. Lies and deception, which means you will have to use half-truths, false information, or omissions so you can confuse and mislead those around you. Control and power, which is all about the use of rewards, punishments, or threats as a means of asserting your control or dominance over the other. The techniques here also aim to shape one's behaviors. Mirroring, which involves adapting the mannerisms and behaviors of another to obtain power and control. Anchoring, which often occurs whenever someone negotiates with another. Here, one party will supply a starting point at first, which will serve as the benchmark for the settlement. The discussion or negotiation will then be anchored or centered around the benchmark before the two parties explore the adjustment prices for the settlement even further. Agreeableness bias, which works by depending on superficial similarities and neglecting systematic differences between the viewpoints and core beliefs of people. The goal here is to earn the trust of those around them. Seduction, which aims to obtain bonds and attachments depending on trauma. These traumatic bonds are the ones that develop or leverage psychological wounds instead of mature affection and love. Innuendos, involving the use of loaded statements and communicating them to people without providing explicit explanations on what they mean. This can greatly affect the ability of someone to make decisions since they have already succumbed to manipulation. Understanding dark psychology triad. When studying dark psychology, it is crucial to delve deeper into the popular triad that is associated with it. Note that there is what we call the dark psychology triad, which refers to a group comprising 3 traits frequently detected together in those who practice manipulation and demonstrate a lack of sympathy or empathy and callousness. It is actually common to find and recognize these 3 traits in just one person. However, there is also a possibility to see each one independently. This means that one may only have one of the traits in this triad and still be able to practice dark psychology without any problem at all. However, those who possess the 3 traits in the triad are known for being dangerous, so you have to consider avoiding them. Narcissism. One trait in the triad that you have to be familiar with is narcissism. You can detect narcissistic behaviors in those who tend to have a superior sense of self-importance. In addition to having no empathy for others, narcissism also makes one desperate for admiration. Narcissistic people commonly prioritize their desires and needs over those around them. It is even highly likely for them to display exploitative or manipulative behavior just to get the results they want. Psychopathy. The dark psychology triad also comprises what we call the psychopathy trait. This particular trait is most likely present in those who have no empathy, conscience, or remorse. The problem with psychopathy is that it makes one who possesses this trait to be more prone to getting reckless and impulsive. They also tend to manipulate, control, or deceive others. Despite displaying these negative behaviors, they are incapable of showing remorse or feeling guilty for the things they did. Machiavellianism. The last trait in the triad is Machiavellianism, which can also be described as an exploitative and manipulative tactic that supports social relations. Those who possess Machiavellian traits are highly likely to focus only on their goals and needs. They lack interest in others' desires and needs. Machiavellianism will also prompt them to manipulate or deceive others so they can obtain more control and power. It is crucial to note that while the three mentioned traits are capable of occurring independently, you can often see these qualities together in those who possess the dark triad. In that case, you can expect these dark triad personalities to be capable of manipulating, exploiting, and endangering other people for pleasure and personal gain. You have to detect these traits not only within yourself, but also in others so you can prevent the possible damage and harm associated with them. Note, though, that it is kind of hard to identify those who have the dark triad qualities. The reason is that they have already mastered how to conceal their real personalities and identities. They are even skilled in making themselves look charismatic, confident, and charming despite the fact that they do not truly have those qualities. Be observant and vigilant so you can avoid being a victim of those who have dark triad personalities. Avoid being victimized by them. Otherwise, you may end up having to deal with psychological and emotional issues, including trauma, depression, and anxiety for a long time. However, if you discover that you have ended up becoming a victim of them, act promptly by seeking the help and support of your loved ones right away. It even helps to look for a therapist who can help you overcome the effects. By detecting such traits and addressing them immediately, it will be easier for you to develop more positive, stronger, and healthier relationships with those around you. Should you avoid using dark psychology? Based on its name, it is safe to assume that dark psychology naturally has negative and dangerous effects. One reason behind it is that it relies greatly on deceit, manipulation, persuasion, and other tactics that seem to contrast the ethics and morals of humans. Despite having plenty of uses, it is highly recommended to avoid practicing it in professional settings. The main reason is that it not only creates an unethical environment devoid of guidelines or rules, but also because the use of deceptive techniques may make the business prone to losing the trust of their workers. This practice may also cause them to tarnish the reputation of the company, alienate their stakeholders, undermine work relationships, and face legal issues. However, if you are serious about mastering dark psychology, you should make it a point to not only research comprehensively about the topic, but also ensure that you get adequate training. Make sure that you truly have a strong and clear grasp of what dark psychology is all about. Be on the know on how to use it to your advantage while preventing its drastic effects on people. Understand its repercussions first. Otherwise, your amateurish use of it may result in conflicts, poor collaboration, and relationships and compromised communication both in your personal and professional life. Still, you do not have to avoid the act of practicing dark psychology completely. Just commit to being a responsible, cautious, and reasonable user of it. How to detect a manipulator and protect yourself from them. The most common users of manipulation and dark psychology are those who hold high positions in power, making them want to gain full control of their targets. For instance, several politicians utilize dark psychology and manipulate the media to present them to the public in a favorable manner. Salespeople also make use of manipulation techniques to persuade prospective customers to buy products from them, even those that are non-essential. The boss or leader in a company may also want to study dark psychology so they can use it in controlling their employees and ensuring that they keep on doing what they want. However, Remember that despite having a bad reputation for being immoral and unethical, manipulation and dark psychology still have positive uses. In fact, certain professions and groups of people use manipulation tactics for the benefit of everyone. For one, a law enforcement officer who is skilled in dark psychology may use it to acquire more useful information from suspects of a crime. Most psychologists practice dark psychology too, so they can understand the minds of their patients better. This practice is also what helps them in guiding their patients to overcome their challenges. With that, it is safe to say that any user or practitioner of dark psychology can gain benefits from it. It is just extremely necessary to understand the way dark psychology techniques work, so you will have an easier time defending or protecting yourself from them. Also, your solid knowledge and training in dark psychology will ensure that you will only use it for good in case you will be in a state wherein you have to use its tactics. Spotting and detecting manipulators. Expert manipulators are everywhere. So likely, you have already encountered one at least once in your life. A lot of manipulators are even so good at what they are doing that their target is already abused for a long time without them knowing about it. An expert manipulator is therefore difficult to spot considering the fact that they work stealthily. There are even instances when they commit crimes without leaving any fingerprints at all. Still, despite having the ability to work stealthily, there is a chance for you to detect them and the negative things they are doing to you. All it takes is to practice vigilance and observe the personalities and behaviors of everyone approaching and surrounding you. To spot and detect a manipulator, find out if they are showing most, if not all, of the mentioned qualities and signs. Too charming, friendly, and nice. One thing that a manipulator may do is use their charming and friendly demeanor to acquire what they want. Example, sex or power. It is easy for manipulators to show their charm on the surface even if what they feel inside is the opposite. The reason is that aside from being ruthless, most manipulators do not also have qualms about causing pain to anyone. A manipulator is even willing to practice dirty tactics to persuade or seduce someone, which is a thing that a reasonable and decent person can't do. They are so passionate about human behavior that there is a chance that they already know what you truly need and desire within just a few moments of being with you. Upon detecting your needs and desires, it is greatly possible for them to provide for you. This will eventually result in you becoming overly dependent on the manipulator. Constant lying and denial. Other areas where manipulators are known to be real experts include lying and denying. For instance, let's say that someone did something wrong to you and misbehaved. Once you decide to confront them, expect them to deny it. Denial is imminent even if it is clear and there is evidence that they indeed misbehaved. Any blatant attempt to lie or deny what they did should prompt you to be on your guard. If you have proof, never allow their lie or denial to confuse you. Just be prepared for them to play innocent as you confront them and make you, the victim, feel like confrontation is unjustified. Also, you have to be really vigilant in detecting a manipulator's lie as it is their most powerful weapon. The fact that their conscience is impaired means that lying is not a big deal to them. Expert manipulators are already capable of lying subtly and covertly. One sign that they are already doing is if they withhold a substantial number of important details from you. They also tend to distort or twist the truth, and they are experts in doing so. Fortunately, you can learn how to catch a liar and defend yourself from these manipulators. Spot them right away by asking questions directly about things that are vital to them, like their family, friends, relatives, address, career, and future plans, among many others. In case you receive evasive, unclear, or vague and inconsistent responses, it could be an indication that they are indeed lying. Gives flattery and compliments excessively. Receiving flattery and compliments can definitely make your day. These compliments can make you feel good and somehow raise your confidence and mood. However, you have to watch out for flattery and compliments that seem to be so excessive and odd. If you receive such compliments excessively, it should alert you to pay close attention to what will most likely come next. Start asking yourself and reflecting on what the person wants to get from you in return. showers you with gifts and favors. Some manipulators also have this tendency to show you their kindness, generosity, and sympathy even if you just met them for the first time. The next time you meet, expect to be showered with a lot of expensive favors and gifts, causing you to interpret the act as their expression of affection and love. However, you have to find out whether their generosity is indeed genuine. Determine if the gifts and favors you receive are unconditional, meaning the giver is not waiting for you to give them something in return. Ensure that the gifts are not meant to bribe you, so you will grant their larger requests and favors. If someone suddenly showers you with attention and gifts, be more observant and vigilant and try to pay more attention to their real intention and character. Tendency to generalize and exaggerate. Several manipulators are also skilled when it comes to exaggerating and generalizing. For instance, you can hear them saying things such as, "No one seems to care for me and understand me." These manipulators will make use of unclear accusations, making it more difficult to spot any holes in their opinions, statements, or arguments. Makes one feel guilty. Expert manipulators also have the ability to use sympathy and guilt to gain control over anyone. The reason behind this is that most people are prone to feeling guilty. There are even instances when one ends up punishing himself because of the guilty feeling they have. Those who have emotionally manipulative prowess are capable of preying on this natural vulnerability in humans. It is highly likely for them to act as a victim and make you recall certain favors in the past that they did for you. You may then feel obliged or sympathetic, providing the manipulator with more opening to control you and get what they want. Involuntary teaming. This is a tactic utilized by many con artists and manipulators as a means of making their victims feel that there is a need for them to team up. This is the reason why this technique often involves the use of we. If you are the target, expect the person manipulating you to make you feel that both of you share an experience or a purpose, even if in reality there is none. Expect to hear words and phrases like, "We're a team," "We did it," or "How should we handle it?" Observe the constant use of we, which can somewhat solidify the idea that you are indeed a team in your head. Now, how can you distinguish between someone who is manipulating and controlling you using this tactic or one who is just sincerely trying to offer help? It helps to listen intently to what your instinct or intuition is telling you. For instance, if you feel extreme discomfort with the thought of accepting one's help, then it could be an indicator that something is wrong. You may also be facing a manipulator if you feel the need to refuse the offered help, but you have doubts because you are afraid that it will make you look rude. Looks selfless. Most expert manipulators have also mastered the art of hiding their real intentions, desire for domination and power, and goals and ambitions. With that said, you may perceive them as someone who is genuinely helpful and selfless during your initial meetings. Note, though, that these are workings of covert aggressive manipulators. They utilize such a tactic to keep their self-serving interests and agendas hidden and send a disguise that their intention is to serve a noble cause. While this technique is common among manipulators, it is kind of hard to spot and detect. Still, you can recognize them by observing their behaviors intently. Shaming. Some manipulators end up shaming their targets or victims. If someone says hurtful or insulting comments regarding your family, physical appearance, weight, or career, among many others, you should start digging deeply into it as it may indicate that you are dealing with a manipulative person. This is especially true if you hear such hurtful comments too frequently. Note that among the things that a lot of manipulators focus on are the weaknesses and insecurities of their target. They quickly notice your insecurities about your weight, for instance, or a facial feature that you view as your flaw. Repeatedly failing an exam is another trigger for them to start making fun of you. All these are workings of manipulators who may try to cloak their hurtful or offensive remarks as jokes. However, you should start paying more attention to their words and statements. By doing that, you will start realizing that the supposedly joking remarks are not funny at all. Most of these remarks even come with unfriendly overtones. These manipulators are actually secretly trying to make you feel bad about yourself and eventually putting you down. This means that they are trying to use shaming techniques so their target or victim will start feeling unworthy or inadequate. When that happens, they will work on making you submissive to them. This powerful technique can make you develop a sense of inadequacy, making it good for manipulators who are trying to dominate people. How to defend yourself from manipulators and dark psychology users. Learning about the warning signs of manipulation should be the first step you should take in your attempt to defend yourself from manipulators and dark psychology users. By knowing these signs, you will be able to detect right away if someone is using and controlling you. This does not mean that you should let yourself be constantly paranoid, though. What you should do instead is safeguard not only yourself, but also your loved ones from expert manipulators. If you feel like someone is trying to control and manipulate you, rest assured that there are still ways to fight and win over their wicked ways, including the following. Raise your awareness. Start to gain more awareness about dark psychology and manipulation. With that, you can immediately pinpoint manipulators and get a sense of what they are doing to you. In most cases, one's attempt to manipulate you may end up causing you to feel guilty, anxious, furious, annoyed, or pressured. The feelings you develop when dealing with a manipulator may also cause you to be confused and perplexed since you can't seem to detect why you feel those emotions. If you experience that, consider it as a red flag. It should serve as a warning that you have to start being more cautious now when interacting with people. Ask questions about the things they ask you to do. One fact about manipulators is that if you start challenging their goals and way of thinking, they will also reassess their tactics and even stop using those. It is important to respond in a timely manner, so you will know immediately if someone is on their way toward controlling you. If they are asking you to do something, inquire or ask questions first. However, your questions and inquiries should not sound like you are accusing them. The fact that you are asking questions should already make them realize that you are uncomfortable with what they are doing and that you are willing to defend yourself. Some examples of questions you can ask the manipulator are, will I get something from this? Do you really expect me to do this? Do you think it's fair for me to be the only one doing this? Declare your position. Whenever you feel like someone tries to play mind games or influence you, you should be able to show your confident and firm stance regarding it. Declare your position by telling them that you will no longer interact or connect with them if they keep on using dark techniques. For instance, you can clearly and directly tell your manipulator that you don't work the way they want you to. You can also clearly express how uncomfortable you are with the direction of your interaction. One more thing that you can do is to tell them frankly that you are not fond of how they intend to handle your encounter and the situation. This is a clear indication that they don't have any chance if they are trying to control and influence you. Decide on what to do next. Find out whether you should proceed with the interaction or not. Are you willing to give the person manipulating you the option to use another method of interaction or engagement with you, or do you prefer moving on and leaving the actual situation? In other words, you need to decide if you should continue or stop your connection with the manipulator. Your decision, though, should be based on the way they receive your comment. Reflect on how they respond to the limits and boundaries you set, since the only one who can answer whether to continue the interaction is you. You may also have a hard time breaking the connection if you are dealing with a close relative or colleague. If such is the case, it helps to distance yourself and create a strategic plan that will help you deal with such a person. The ultimate weapon against manipulators: practicing dark psychology yourself. Of course, the ultimate secret to fighting against manipulators and defending yourself from them is to know exactly how dark psychology works. You have to learn the ins and outs of dark psychology and understand how to practice it yourself. Note that depending on what particular situation you are in, a certain dark psychology tactic will be more or less powerful or effective. By gaining a much better understanding of dark psychology, you can prevent yourself from being manipulated. You can even use your knowledge to turn the tables around, making you the manipulator and using their insecurities and weaknesses against them. Here are the specific fields where dark psychology tactics will be deemed useful. Dating. Dark psychology has a lot of principles and tactics that are applicable to dating. No matter what techniques one uses, the goal for using dark psychology in this field will still be the same. That is, obtaining what they want from all their romantic interactions. An effective technique to develop a sense of control and power over someone in this field is to manipulate their feelings and emotions. One example is to learn about their insecurities and play on them. You can do that if you flirt with your target and then suggest the possibility that they may lose their partner anytime. It is also possible to leverage their strong desire to be validated socially by giving them lavish compliments and ignoring their flaws and imperfections. This is what we call love bombing. Regardless of your chosen technique, you have an assurance that dark psychology has plenty of effective tools that will give you strategic and powerful advantages in the dating scene. Social interactions. As you may have already known by now, dark psychology tackles the darkest facets of humans, including manipulating, guilt-tripping, and deception. You can expect these behaviors to manifest naturally in various ways, especially when you develop social interactions and interpersonal relationships. For instance, one may get extremely angry or aggressive when in a heated argument with a relative or romantic partner. Your knowledge of dark psychology will also help you apply this technique in all of your social interactions, so you can also avoid the possibility of being a victim. Competitive business environments. Many also practice dark psychology in business settings and workplaces. You can see this tactic being commonly used in sales and marketing since it usually involves manipulating the emotional responses and reactions of people to gain a competitive edge in the market. A company may even gain a competitive edge and a better chance of increasing their sales if their team uses emotional appeals and persuasive language. The goal here is to encourage certain responses from their target, like disgust, fear, and arousal. Aside from sales and marketing, you will find dark psychology useful when trying to gain strategic dominance in the workplace. For instance, you can use certain negotiation and persuasion techniques to obtain subliminal influence over your target, though you have to make sure that you do not resort to using unscrupulous and dishonest tactics. Politics. Politicians are also known for being the most common users of dark psychology. As a matter of fact, it has already been several centuries since dark psychology was first practiced in politics. The usual uses of dark psychology in the world of politics include forming divisions, brainwashing, exploiting people's vulnerabilities, and playing on the thing they're afraid of. Those who are into politics and are skilled in using dark psychology have already mastered the art of cultivating the us versus them mindset. This further results in conflict and division. Politicians are also skilled in playing on the fears of people and exploiting them based on their vulnerabilities. Their goal for doing that is to garner the vote of the people or persuade them to support their proposed policies. Dark psychology gives you the option to use its tactics for either good or evil, but when it comes to politics, experts of it use it to gain advantage or become even more powerful. I hope you're enjoying my audiobook so far. It would be a pleasure if you could let me know how you're feeling about this audiobook in the comments section below. We would greatly appreciate it if you could also like this video and subscribe to United Audiobooks to have access to more best-selling audiobooks in the future. Also, please, if you are interested in getting more free audiobooks, please click the first link in the description below. Now, let's carry on with the next chapter. Dark psychology techniques, verbal and nonverbal manipulation. As you may have already known by now, manipulation is the key technique used in dark psychology. Manipulation is so common in this field that even those who are not familiar with dark psychology attempt to manipulate others. This is the reason why manipulative tendencies keep on surfacing in almost all kinds of relationships. Anyone can experience it in whatever relationship they have with others. It could be from friends, parents, relatives, and romantic partners. Your boss and colleagues may even possess manipulative tendencies, and they may have already been using those on you without your knowledge. The problem is that it is not that easy to recognize and spot them. There are even instances when manipulation in certain relationships is so effective yet subtle that you may end up doubting how you perceive the entire situation, instead of the motives and actions of the person who is seemingly manipulating you. Gaslighting, which will also be covered in this book, makes it even harder to discern and spot manipulative tactics. Still, you can prevent yourself from falling victim to manipulators if you educate yourself about dark psychology and learn a few psychological and manipulation tactics and games that you can also use against them. What exactly is manipulation? Manipulation occurs when one exercises influence that may harm or endanger people. It compromises manipulative actions and behaviors used by someone to obtain control or influence over the other. It is a kind of psychological aggression compromising behaviors frequently linked to intimate violence. There is a chance that you are being manipulated if one attacks your emotional or mental side to achieve their goals and wants. One who has manipulative tendencies, referred to as the manipulator, attempts to form an imbalance as far as power is concerned. They do it by exploiting their victim with the goal of obtaining power, control, and privileges, among many other benefits. One thing to note about manipulation is that it happens both in casual and close relationships. It is more commonly practiced in tight-knit relationships, though. In general, it attempts to sway one's feelings, emotions, and judgments just so they will end up acting or feeling in a way intended by the manipulator. Expert manipulators already have a few tricks on their sleeves to help them make those things happen. They will use such tricks, including guilt, comparisons, denial, lying, complaints, mind games, feigned innocence or ignorance, and blame to question your rational and logical thinking, thereby boosting the chance of you agreeing to them or submitting to their requests. If you are victimized by manipulators, therefore you will have a hard time spotting and expressing your needs and wants in a healthy and appropriate manner. It helps to become more aware of these manipulative tendencies, whether verbal or nonverbal, so you can protect yourself. Stages of manipulation. Most manipulative tendencies are subtle and undetectable. However, take note that it basically has 4 stages that you have to be aware of and understand. Flattery. This is considered the first stage of manipulation, which involves the manipulator putting on a show or facade that they are helping, caring, and kind. It would seem like they are approaching you to offer genuine help, though in reality, their goal is to trick you into submission. Isolation. In this stage, the manipulator will begin isolating you from the people close to you, including your family and friends. This may happen after they convince you that those close to you do not truly care for you or understand you, and all they want to do is gain control over you instead. In most cases, the manipulator does this to take you away from those whom they believe will also manipulate you. Gaslighting and devaluing. In this stage, the manipulator will likely do things that will confuse you or make you harbor guilt. This may happen once they start telling you how ungrateful you are or how you make them feel sad. When the manipulator reaches this stage, their goal is to create doubt and confusion within themselves. They will prompt you to doubt your decisions and instincts. It is kind of difficult to let yourself go from the control of a manipulator if you reach this stage, so you have to be really keen in reading people to avoid being victimized by abusive and manipulative ones. Violence or fear. This is the last stage of manipulation, which already comes with threats. Your manipulator will put pressure on you and express threats that will hurt or leave you. They do this so they can continue to control you through fear. Verbal manipulation. Words and language hold a lot of power. With words, you can establish closeness and connection with others. You also use words to understand the people around you, gain comfort, and seek help. However, there are also several instances when words have a negative impact. That is when those are used to create distance, hurt others, or develop misunderstandings. It is even possible for words to turn into a kind of psychological and verbal abuse, though. It seems to be cloaked and less subtle when applied to relationships. Despite being masked, the verbal manipulation and abuse will become noticeable eventually as it results in frustration, dissatisfaction, and forced submission. If you want to understand what exactly happens in verbal manipulation, take note that it widely covers different attitudes and behaviors, specifically those that go over threats and insults. In most cases, verbal manipulation even happens surreptitiously. The fact that this form of manipulation often comes from the people you know, even your loved ones, make it even harder to recognize and admit. Here are the most commonly used verbal manipulation tactics to help you at least detect immediately whenever someone tries to control and manipulate you. Guilt tripping. This verbal manipulation tactic involves the manipulator making their victim or target feel guilty or responsible for their decision or action. The one who performs guilt tripping will likely use something you did for them before as leverage. This will leave you with no choice but to grant their request. A few verbal examples of guilt tripping are, "You should do this for me. Remember how I helped you get through college? You would not have been able to reach that stage without me. I deserve all the credit. I put in all the effort for this project while you were just assigned to do the easy stuff. It's senseless to throw out a birthday party and invite everyone else if you have no plan to come over." With these examples, it is safe to assume that this verbal manipulation technique reminds you of the things you owe someone. The manipulator may also end up playing the victim, so you will feel even guiltier. Blocking the dialogue. This tactic can be performed by distracting you from the main conflict or problem. In other words, your primary focus will no longer be on the actual problem since your attention will be diverted to another. When someone manipulates you through this technique, expect them to be the one to decide on the topics of communication that are appropriate for both of you. In other words, any topic that they consider sensitive and inappropriate will be blocked by them. This is especially true for topics that they feel will undermine their powerful position in your relationship. If there's a conflict and both parties know about it, it is likely for you, the victim, to be unable to talk about the topic because you are afraid of how the other will react. If you usually feel that way, it could be that someone has indeed made you a target for manipulation. Trivialization, disqualification. In this verbal manipulation technique, you will notice that someone is trying to minimize or discredit your inner world. This means that your ideas and feelings are often invalidated. They usually do this verbally in the form of a joke or criticism, but the ultimate purpose is to downplay or invalidate your inner reality. Whenever you are with the manipulator, you will feel like your emotions, actions, and thoughts are very trivial and insignificant, which makes you perceive them as unworthy of your time and attention. You will be able to read someone who is trying to manipulate you verbally if you notice them trivializing all the things that you suggest or say. There are even instances when you are denied the emotional validation you need to make you stronger and more reinforced. The words that come out of their mouths are usually degrading labels, like you being extremely childish, inexperienced, and sensitive. Hearing such words from people you love and trust is so degrading to the point that you will begin to doubt and question yourself and your own opinions. The worst thing that could happen is you feeling extremely bad for your own thoughts and feelings. You will start believing that every response or reaction you have is inappropriate or wrong. Blatant denial. Another common technique used by verbal manipulators is blatant denial, or the tendency to reject self-responsibility. You will know that someone is using this technique if they seem to be incapable of recognizing their mistakes. They tend to deny their bad behaviors as well as the result of their behaviors and mistakes. In this technique, the manipulator will blatantly reject responsibility and refuse to admit that their words, behaviors, and actions have resulted in dire consequences. Even if the wrong behavior or the mistake is so clear, the manipulator finds a way to rationalize or justify it all the time. However, this denial of responsibility may cause the relationship to cease. Since you were the victim, You will also be vulnerable to the force and pressure of having to carry the weight and burden, which is supposedly shared by the two of you alone. Criticizing and blaming. This involves the use of both guilt and manipulation when attempting to make the other responsible for something. In this tactic, the one manipulating will blame their victim or target for every issue and conflict that occurred in their relationship. There is even the possibility for them to blame and criticize you even for their own life failures and dissatisfactions. This is their way of subduing you or any of their victims. Criticisms may also be used by the manipulator as an instrument to control you. The fact that you receive constant judgments and criticisms may cause you to lose your self-esteem and confidence. If you succumb to the psychological vulnerability brought on by the manipulation, you will likely accept the blame and guilt they try putting on you. Sooner or later, you will end up granting their wishes and submitting to their demands. Passive aggression. Passive aggression is another form of verbal manipulation. In this technique, the manipulator utilizes passive-aggressive behaviors or statements causing distress whenever their behaviors are not compatible with the words that they blurt out. They may also retaliate in case of a perceived offense while staying away from conflict. One situation that shows passive aggression is when one behaves in a way that they are frustrated and upset but they do not communicate such feelings directly. The ability to spot verbal manipulation, like its tactics mentioned here, is a crucial step to curbing and stopping it. This makes it really necessary to observe intently. Watch out for even the smallest indicators that your communication and discussion with someone have already turned out to be your being on the verge of turning into a manipulator victim. Find out whether there are signs that both parties are already going out of their usual assertive paths. Apart from the language and words coming from the mouth of the suspected manipulator, another crucial sign is when the talk or discussion causes new problems and conflicts instead of solving the previous ones. It may also end up increasing dissatisfaction. Once you have confirmed that, it is time to do something to stop it. The reason is that the manipulator may use the conflict as an instrument to gain more benefits from your relationship with them and take advantage of you. Nonverbal manipulation, body language, and facial expressions. There are also several instances when manipulators control their victims without the use of words. This is what we call nonverbal manipulation, which you can detect by reading body language and facial expressions. Now, how can you spot someone who is already manipulating you nonverbally? Watch out for these body language signals and facial expressions. Foot tapping. If you are talking to someone who taps their feet frequently, it could be an indication that they are impatient and annoyed. It is one way for the manipulator to convey such emotions intentionally. You may also notice them beginning to click a pen. When those body signals appear, the victim may be on the verge of feeling guilty. Foot tapping may even make you prone to rushing your decision, which is something that the manipulator would like to achieve. Scratching the chin. Anyone who attempts to manipulate you may also scratch their chin every now and then to demonstrate their poor confidence and uncertainty. They frequently use this technique so you will be forced to submit to their requests. Once you notice that they are uncertain, you may feel the urge to do something for them and on their behalf. Even if you don't like to do it initially, the look of doubt and uncertainty on their faces will push you to give them what they are asking for. Note, though, that there are instances when they just feign such emotions. If you notice that they keep on scratching their chin, even if you are 100% sure that they can do what they are asking you to do, there is a high chance that you are being manipulated. Rapid blinking and prolonged eye contact. The rate of blinks and gaze given to you by someone is an indicator of their internal state. In general, people blink 4 to 5 times every minute. In other words, both eyes have to blink only once every 12 to 15 seconds approximately. If you notice a significantly higher than usual number of blinking, it is highly likely that the person is nervous and maybe tensed as they are trying to manipulate you to be on their side. If they are capable of looking you directly in the eye when talking, there is a chance that they are genuinely paying attention and are interested in you. However, prolonged eye contact should be a cause for concern, as it may cause one to feel threatened. Also, be wary when the one you are talking to keeps on breaking eye contact. This means that they often look away. This body signal could mean that they are uncomfortable, distracted, or attempting to hide their real feelings. Rubbing of the neck and hand. You also have to be extra careful when you notice someone continuously rubbing their hands together as they discuss things with you. The reason is that this body language could indicate that they are conveying their dominance, power, hurriedness, and annoyance. A person who experiences stress at the moment may also end up rubbing their neck. You may see this body cue in manipulators who feel kind of stressed and guilty as they are trying to exploit someone. It is also highly likely that you are being manipulated if the neck and hand rubbing is an action that the person does not naturally do. Constant changing of body positions. If you feel like you are being controlled, you may be able to confirm your suspicion by observing the number of times they change the position of their body. A constant shift in body positions could be a way for manipulators to make you believe that they feel uncomfortable. The reason is that it is natural for the mind of humans to detect discomfort in people and offer relief and consolation. With that said, you will be at risk of caving into the demands of someone if you feel like they are uncomfortable due to their constant shifting of positions. Body signals that violate or invade your personal space. Expert manipulators also tend to do their thing by moving into the personal bubble or invading the space of their victim. They usually do this as a means of forming a feigned sense of intimacy. No matter how much you step back or away to gain your own space again, there is still a possibility for them to lean in very close to you. There are even instances when they keep on touching your shoulder or arm to somehow form a bond. If you notice such actions, be more vigilant to ensure that you won't end up falling into the trap of manipulators. You have to gain a thorough understanding of the typical gestures, facial expressions, and body language of people. With that, you will be able to detect with ease if there are deviations or changes in how they naturally behave. Once you notice them departing from their usual behaviors through body language, meaning without saying a word, there is a possibility that you are indeed being manipulated non-verbally. Since you are already knowledgeable about the usual body language signaling manipulation, you can immediately read their real motives and intentions, giving you the chance to escape the situation before you get victimized. Emotional manipulation, exploitation, and control. Of course, you have already known by now how manipulation is all about the attempt to gain control over someone or something. Let's say you are using your hands to manipulate something. In that case, you have to put it in a position that will be compatible with your intent. One sample situation is if you are an artist and you decided to turn a piece of clay into pottery. Note, though, that humans are actually more difficult compared to things. The reason is that we are engineered to have our own thought processes. In other words, it is natural for humans to have unique needs, interests, wants, beliefs, and principles. All these guide you as you journey through life. However, despite having your own thoughts and beliefs, you are still not completely immune to manipulators. Now and then you will encounter manipulators who may attempt to control you using your emotions. If you sense someone using and exploiting your emotions to satisfy their self-interests and gain benefits, then you may be under the spell of emotional manipulation. The same is true if your emotions are also utilized to influence your own beliefs and ideals and keep your behaviors under control. Some manipulators use this tactic in case they are desperate to control you but seem to have a hard time doing so physically. Emotional manipulation defined. Emotional manipulation falls under the classification of psychological manipulation. In this technique, the manipulator will look for a way to control your emotions. One frequently performs this through coercion, persuasion, and emotional blackmail. The goal is to exploit, influence, or control someone emotionally to gain an advantage. Emotional manipulation is common in almost all kinds of relationships. This type of manipulation may exist as a kind of abuse on its own. However, there are also instances when it is practiced together with other types of abuse. It could be physical, spiritual, and psychological abuse. Note, though, that it is also kind of difficult to identify the presence of emotional manipulation since a part of its primary purpose or goal is to keep on making the power dynamics uneven. The entire tactic sounds malicious, but note that it is not entirely produced by conscious thoughts. There are instances when emotional manipulation becomes second nature, habitual, or ingrained, resulting from an adverse experience or previous trauma, especially one from your childhood. Those who went through abuse before are also at risk of developing manipulative tendencies and behaviors. The reason behind this is that the ones who abused them in the past may have punished them every time they attempt to express and demonstrate their wants and needs directly and healthily. Some act manipulative as they came from households where all forms of manipulations are routine behaviors. This prevented them from learning other healthy and rational ways to express and communicate their thoughts and feelings. Regardless of the reason for the behavior, you can often see emotional manipulation being practiced in toxic and abusive relationships. Note, though, that while this form of manipulation when applied in relationships occurs on a spectrum, you can't expect it to hold malicious intent all the time. Also note that the abuse may either be overt or covert. For instance, let's say that a boss gave positive feedback to one of their employees. This form of feedback is often given to reinforce good behaviors positively and encourage employees to keep on practicing such good behavior. In this case, the boss is encouraging the employee to keep on exhibiting positive behaviors. This shows that there is no malicious intent in this scenario. How to sense if you are being emotionally manipulated. Now, how will you know if someone has already been using your emotions to control and manipulate you? Watch out for the following signs and behaviors so you can act right away in case you are being subjected to emotional manipulation. Keeps what we call the home court advantage. Are you presently on your turf, such as your own home or a certain place that you consider your safe haven? Then you will surely feel empowered. If that is the case, you have to be cautious whenever someone keeps on insisting that you should only meet in their place. The reason is that it could indicate their attempt to form an unevenness or imbalance in power. Since you are in their safe place, expect them to claim that they are the owner of such. This will leave you with nothing except being at a disadvantage. A couple of examples that indicate that you are being manipulated emotionally are the following. I really have a hectic schedule tonight, so I can't go with you. Pay me a visit at the office instead. You already know that it is a far drive from my home. If you want, you can come here tonight. Capable of building a close relationship with someone fast. In other words, emotional manipulators will likely skip several steps in the usual get-to-know-you stage. In fact, even if you just met, they can share the secrets, vulnerabilities, and weaknesses they try to conceal from anyone else. Note, though, that this move is often feigned. The truth is they are telling you their secrets so you will feel special. This may prompt you to open up about your secrets and a few sensitivities. The problem with this is that the manipulators may use such information against you sooner or later. Allows you to talk first. You can often see this famous technique being used in business relationships. Note, though, that different personalities may also experience it. If someone who intends to gain control approaches you, it is possible for them to ask probing questions as a start. This may result in you sharing your thoughts and concerns early on. One crucial reminder is that the manipulator here often has a hidden agenda. In most cases, the answers they gathered from you may be used soon to manipulate your behaviors and decisions. Twists facts. Those who are into emotional manipulation have already mastered the art of changing or altering reality through misstatements, lies, and fibs. They frequently do this to trigger confusion. These manipulators tend to exaggerate certain occasions and events so they will be the ones who will look more vulnerable. It is also likely for them to understate the roles contributed by them in a conflict, so they can keep on gaining sympathy. Here are a couple of instances when this indicator of emotional manipulation is being used. I tried to ask her about this particular project, but I ended up being yelled at for not contributing anything to it. I'm sure you were aware of my contributions, right? I cried the entire night. I did not even sleep well because of this situation. Bullies intellectually. There is also a chance that someone is emotionally manipulating you if you feel like you are being bullied intellectually. You are being subjected to intellectual bullying if one tends to overwhelm you with a lot of facts, complex jargon, and statistics when you are talking to them or asking a question. One reason why manipulators do this is that they would like those around them to look at them as experts. With that, expect them to impose what they know on you. This kind of manipulation is frequently seen in sales and financial situations. Let's say you are still a beginner in a particular field. In such a case, someone may tell you that their expectations of you are not that high because you, being a beginner, means that you can't comprehend everything yet. It could also be that they are telling you how they need to explain things to you more slowly and thoroughly because it involves a lot of figures and data. If a supposed expert keeps on telling you those things, you may end up feeling like you know nothing, which could eventually hamper your confidence. Makes you feel guilty and sorry every time you express your concerns. Emotional manipulators also have the ability to respond to your suggestions, questions, and concerns aggressively. Every time you voice out your concerns, you may end up feeling bad and sorry since there is a high chance that it will lead to conflicts and arguments. In most cases, manipulators perform this technique so they will have a significant influence and control over your decisions and choices. It is also possible for them to use the situation you are in to feel really guilty that you expressed your concerns and opinions in the first place. Silent treatment. Some manipulators also end up giving you the silent treatment or the cold shoulder. They would not respond to your emails, calls, inquiries, and text messages even if all those are within reason. What they do is make you wait and put uncertainty and doubt in your mind, so they can presume and show their power. They use silence as their leverage, and while there are times when it is right to request time and space, the use of silent treatment to punish you is considered manipulative. Uses negative humor. Someone is also using your emotions to keep on manipulating you if they frequently give critical comments and remarks that they frequently disguise in the form of sarcasm and humor. This action aims to make you feel less secure, thereby leading to you feeling so inferior. Some example comments where negative humor is being applied are those that tend to degrade your physical appearance, the things you own, like an old model smartphone, as well as your credentials and background. The goal of your manipulator here is to make you look and feel bad so they can keep on showcasing their psychological superiority. Emotional manipulation techniques. Now that you know a few indicators of being manipulated emotionally, it is time for you to learn about the specific tactics used by manipulators in this aspect. Basically, your emotions are the ones that are primarily being played here. In general, emotional manipulation makes use of a kind of behavior revolving around overt and subtle techniques to influence and control not only your emotions, but also your behaviors and thoughts. Again, it is kind of hard to spot and detect while having the ability to cause the victim extreme emotional harm in the long term. This is why you really have to equip yourself with the most relevant information regarding the most commonly used emotional manipulation tactics. This knowledge will serve as your protection from these atrocious manipulators. Among the tactics used by emotional manipulators are those that revolve around hurtful comparisons, denial of facts, and lying. Silence, exaggeration, and withholding of crucial and valuable items and details also fall under manipulative tendencies. All these tactics and behaviors have detrimental effects on your emotional and mental safety, so you should start being more vigilant. Love bombing and idealization. Love bombing refers to a manipulative tactic, which involves supplying the victim with excessive attention. If you are the target or victim, It is highly likely that you are frequently being inappropriately showered not only with material gifts but also with time, affection, and compliments or flattery. While these gifts are wonderful, they are also very confusing. It is already called love bombing when the giving of gifts ends up feeling so enrapturing. You will feel like it is already excessive and gets all of your attention. You may feel incredible upon being showered with both material and non-material gifts at first, but eventually, it often makes you feel isolated. This makes you even prone to losing sight of your real self. The problem is that if you end up being swept away by the gifts and gestures, you may notice the attention suddenly stopping or dwindling out. The result is you feeling like it is you who chases and searches for it. Love bombing is actually one of the most commonly used manipulation tools by those who have a narcissistic personality disorder. The reason is that it commands your attention once you start isolating yourself not only from your loved ones, but also from your life goals. If you feel like you are being victimized by love bombing, then make sure to exercise patience with yourself. Work on forgiving yourself too. Be aware that you can also prevent love bombing in the first place if you spend quality time with your loved ones regularly. Make sure that you also engage in your unique passion and interest that do not include the supposed manipulator. One more thing that you should do is to check in with and reflect on yourself often. By doing that, you have an assurance that you will continuously be aligned with your own set standards and values. Gaslighting. Another insidious means of manipulating anyone emotionally is gaslighting. It is insidious and deceptive in the sense that it eventually causes you to eventually doubt your supposed to be unique and confidential perceptions and experiences. There is a possibility for the manipulator to convince you about how untruthful something is while also acting that they feel wrong or crazy for believing it was real. Basically, gaslighting may cause you to start questioning and doubting the reality you know, since the manipulator will most likely lie, deny statements they have already said before, or use your words against you. Eventually, this will cause you to develop doubt and uncertainty. You will also start second-guessing the experiences, even if you have memories of them. The fact that they are experts in distorting or denying reality may result in you truly doubting your memories and your supposedly unique perceptions of things. The abuser or manipulator may also do the following. Keep on complaining that you did or said something you should not have. Deny the occurrence of an event. Question the memory you had regarding events and facts. Feign lack of understanding on what is being fed to you or refusing to hear you. Deny all statements and promises delivered earlier. By denying your own reality, there is a high possibility that the manipulator will start imposing their own version of the reality. With that, the victim may end up being deeply frustrated and confused, resulting in you over-relying on the version of the reality of the manipulator. Projection. In this technique, the manipulator will project their subjective experiences on you. This means that instead of directly dealing with what is bad and unfavorable in them directly, they do so indirectly with you acting as the projector screen for them. Another situation where projection may take place is when there is a feeling of guilt in the manipulator because of something they regularly do. Rather than handling their guilt on their own, there is a risk for them to project this feeling to you, which is their victim. There's even a possibility that they will turn the blame on you by saying that the manipulator is actually you. This may cause you to feel quite guilty. A person who uses projection to manipulate others and be in control may also use this technique to deal with other negative emotions, such as jealousy. Blaming is also common in projection, which can be characterized by you feeling responsible for the situation because that is what the manipulator projects and ingrains within you. Emotional blackmail. There is also what we call emotional blackmail. This form of emotional manipulation excessively uses your feelings to keep your behaviors under the control of the manipulator. This will also serve as a motivator to view and perceive things in a different light. Similar to the usual blackmail, emotional blackmail is all about someone attempting hard to obtain what they desperately wish to receive from you. However, rather than holding secrets that they can use against you, you can expect them to manipulate or control you using your emotions. Exploiting your insecurities and weaknesses. If someone is aware of your secret insecurity regarding a specific aspect of yourself, expect them to highlight it. Ultimately, the goal of telling everyone about your insecurities and highlighting them is that they may stimulate someone to persuade you to do something. Note that the constant use of this technique against you is an indication of emotional manipulation. They may also repeatedly and deliberately embarrass you, which is another way of manipulating and playing with your emotions. The result is you developing shame because of your exploitation of your insecurities and weaknesses that can ultimately lead to a major blow to your behavior. How to handle emotional manipulation. Again, you should remind yourself of how sneaky emotional manipulation is. Still, you can rest assured that you can handle this with the help of the following tips. Be fully aware of the signs. Note that the manipulators commonly demonstrate the same kinds of behavior. Be wary of those who seem to be overly and excessively friendly, as well as those who constantly make false and empty promises. Observe your own feelings and emotions. You can also fight emotional manipulation by gaining full awareness of your own feelings and emotions. One reminder is that your tendency to evoke intense or strong emotions may put you at the center of the majority of manipulation methods. The reason is that manipulators are experts in playing with emotions, but with your awareness of your own feelings, you can prevent them from controlling you. Do not personalize. Yes, being emotionally manipulated may make you feel hurt. However, even with the pain associated with this act, you should still internalize and reflect on the fact that such behavior does not do anything with you. It is the other way around instead. This means that there is more on the manipulator as well as their lack of capacity to satisfy their needs healthily. Listen intently. You can also handle emotional manipulators through intent and active listening. Being emotionally manipulated does not feel good, but confronting them in the most excessive way possible may only aggravate the situation. Try to listen closely with empathy, so you will be able to see their wants and needs. Respect boundaries. Once you have finished hearing what the other person is saying and you detected that someone is trying to manipulate you, be very careful to keep your limits and boundaries in check. It should be at a healthy level. Note that your decision to respectfully and assertively respond to the manipulation may cause them to perceive you as someone immune to your tactics. With that, they will most likely stop manipulating you and try to look for other victims fast indeed. Talk to a trusted loved one. Remember that the whole process of knowing that you are being manipulative can be hurtful and emotionally draining. With that, you should make it a point to build a strong support system. Talk to your loved ones, especially those you trust, regarding your experience. The fact that you are talking about it will help you go through the healing process fast. Make sure that you also remain calm. It is necessary to keep yourself under control and avoid losing your cool as you deal with manipulators. Do not allow them to affect you excessively or cause you to get too nervous. By doing that, your chance of beating them will grow exponentially high. Cognitive manipulation and mind control. Dark psychology also encompasses techniques and methods for cognitive manipulation and mind control. It utilizes concepts like manipulation, coercion, and control to benefit the manipulator while endangering and limiting the power and freedom of the target or victim. It makes use of the art of manipulation, which also involves exploiting your cognitive biases to bend your mind in accordance with the will of the manipulator. But what are actually the techniques used by master manipulators to control your mind and exploit your cognitive biases? You will learn and understand that in this chapter. Cognitive bias and how to exploit it. Cognitive biases refers to a systematic error in the way you think, which can significantly impact your judgment and decision. It is innate in humans to have cognitive biases that greatly influence their opinions and judgments. The effect is so significant even if you consider yourself one of the most reasonable and rational people. Cognitive bias is known to be very precious, especially in the business world, which is why a lot of cunning and scheming manipulators and strategists are waiting for their chance to exploit it. Manipulators end up exploiting such biases so they can receive selective details or frame some situations in such a way that they become in line with their preconceived notions of people. This can make the manipulators appear more reliable. Learning about cognitive biases and understanding how to exploit it can benefit different areas of your life. For one, it can ensure that you will not get victimized even by master manipulators who are trying to exploit your biases and control your mind. Being knowledgeable in this field also allows you to use cognitive biases of others to your advantage, though you have to make sure that you won't end up abusing this ability. You can use it to become an effective and reasonable manipulator, which will be a big help in swaying thoughts and opinions, keeping the outcome or result of certain negotiations under your control, and facilitating and orchestrating strategic actions that will guarantee your success in various areas of your life, especially if you are in the world of business. So how can one manipulate cognitive biases? The manipulation is possible by learning about the different kinds of biases, including the following. Confirmation. Confirmation bias is all about feeding one's ego. Basically, it is the innate desire of humans to look for, remember, and intercept certain details and information capable of confirming the beliefs and principles that one already has. Exploiting this bias is possible if you feed the ego of your opponent using details and information that are supportive and in line with their views and beliefs. Expect them to feel good as they will think that they have found an ally whose beliefs and views are the same as theirs, while remaining unaware that what you are actually doing is tightening your hold on their delicate and fragile psyche. If you want to exploit this bias, it would help to determine the beliefs, assumptions, and opinions of your target first. You should then prepare data, expert opinions, and anecdotes that you can present to them. Ensure that all these details validate the convictions of your target. The goal is to make them feel how confident you are in their convictions and views and how your beliefs are the same. With that, it is highly likely that they will become more prone to your control and influence. One example is when your target believes that a specific marketing technique is what will make your business successful. What you should do is agree with them. You should then give them additional pieces of evidence that will make their belief even stronger. After seeing that their convictions are already firm, it is time for you to begin controlling the strategy's direction subtly so it will start serving your goals and interests. Anchoring. This particular form of cognitive bias will help you set the mood for proper negotiation. When this tactic for exploiting cognitive bias is used, expect people to depend too much on the information that they receive first, which they consider the anchor in terms of formulating decisions. You can also use this particular technique to get your desired results. For instance, if you wish to get a favorable deal, make it a point to develop an anchor that is high enough that you can observe your target struggling to make negotiations around the heightened figure that you ingrained in their mind. Exploit this cognitive bias in your business negotiations. For instance, you should set your terms in a particular price that can benefit you first. This should help you form an anchor, which can influence the remaining parts of your negotiation. You may also supply them with an unrelated detail, which should act as the anchor. This should serve as a subtle guide in the decision-making process of your target. Sunk cost fallacy. In this cognitive bias, your goal is to trap your target in the investments that they make. Basically, it works under the premise that one should keep on making investments in something depending on the exact number of resources that were invested already, instead of objectively analyzing the present situation. To exploit this bias and gain the result you want, you should persuade your target to invest more money and time into a certain project. Putting substantial investments into it makes it harder for them to walk out of the project. This is true even if the chance for them obtaining their desired results is low. You should, therefore, aim to increase one's level of commitment to a particular project. That way, they will keep on investing and putting their effort into it no matter what. It is possible for you to continue being in control if you keep on capitalizing on their refusal to accept defeat. For instance, you can encourage someone to place a substantial investment in a partnership. As they keep on growing their investment, there is a slim chance that they will back out. Leverage this kind of commitment so you can have better terms as you negotiate or make the other party accept an outcome that is less favorable to them but fruitful to you. The basics of mind control. Learning how to control the mind of others also contributes to making you more adept at practicing dark psychology and manipulation. The relevance of mind control at the present can be likened to how relevant it was back then in the 1950s. At that time, mind control is also classified as brainwashing. It was the time when the Korean War was still ongoing, and those in Chinese prison camps made use of mind control or brainwashing to ensure that they wouldn't be defeated by the American troops. In general, this concept takes place every time you utilize an external force while deliberately aiming to control how one behaves, acts, and thinks. You may be able to do it either physically or psychologically. It frequently requires you to break down the subject with the goal of gaining full control over them. Initially, you may believe that controlling the mind is not doable and possible. Note, though, that unconsciously it may have already been part of your daily life. It could be that you are already doing it as you promote your products or services or show your media bias when you talk about politics. The following are just some of the most common ways where you can see mind control being put into practice. Isolation. Do you find yourself slowly detaching and isolating from your loved ones? Then the reason could be that someone is subjecting you to mind control. You may have also been doing this to others. It happens when one tells the other about the flaws and imperfections of those around them. This is so you can be brainwashed into thinking that being with them is not good. The result is you slowly dissociating yourself from your loved ones. This is what the manipulator wants, to keep you vulnerable and alone, so you will end up having a broken spirit. Moodiness. One may also manipulate or control the mind of others through their mood or behaviors. For instance, you can see your partner sulking if you do not grant his or her request. It could also be that you are doing this technique to control those around you, too. For instance, you have this tendency to alter your behavior and the way you respond to others if you want to prevent or stop a conflict or argument. This signifies the beginning of mind control since you are starting to change your actions due to the things that the other party is also doing. Metacommunication. In this particular mind control technique, the manipulator provides subtle hints and clues with the help of nonverbal signals. One example is when you tell someone who is asking you whether or not you are fine with a yes, but your body signals indicate that you are far from fine. It could be that you accompany your positive response with an obvious sigh. You may have also said, "Yes, I'm fine," but you are shrugging your shoulders. These body cues indicate that in reality, you are not okay. Overall, metacommunication works for anyone who aims to make their target form subliminal thoughts. Neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP for short. NLP involves the use of language to layer specific thoughts into the unconscious mind of your target without making them know about it. It is crucial to note that this popular technique for mind control and manipulation gives a closer and clearer look at the number of areas in a person's life. It also requires the use of language as a means of planting suggestions. Let's say, for example, that you have a visually oriented target. In this case, you will have to speak to them with the help of a language which utilizes visual cues like, "Can you clearly see the actual meaning of what I said?" Those who are more adept in using auditory cues should be able to receive hearing language, such as, "I hear you loud and clear." Rules that can't be compromised. If you need to follow the rules of someone close to you, like your partner, even those that are unreasonable, and without you getting the chance to compromise, then you are subject to mind control. These rules may include having to adhere to unreasonable deadlines, zero access to your friends' or own funds, and strict regulations during bathroom breaks and meal times. You may have been controlled mentally in this case, as they tend to stop you from making decisions as you will just need to follow strictly certain behaviors. With that, you will notice yourself stopping to think for yourself. This may also result in them having an easier time implanting their own unique developments and agenda. Deception. Deception is also another method used by manipulators in controlling the minds of their victims successfully. In general, the act of deceiving could be minor, huge, or cruel. Regardless of how severe the deception is, the goal is the same. That is, urging someone to believe things that are false and untrue. One key point here is that no matter how honest a person is, they may still be tempted to use deception against others. In other words, even honest people get frequently involved in deception. In fact, it is possible for one person to lie several times daily. In most cases, though, those are minor white lies that they often express to avoid uncomfortable scenarios and lower the risk of offending someone. Reverse psychology. Another method which is currently being used now to control other people is what we call reverse psychology. This is being used to attain their unique goals and ensure that they get and receive what they truly want. Even those who are still unfamiliar with reverse psychology may have already witnessed someone doing this technique. One thing that makes reverse psychology so popular in the field of mind control is that sometimes one can't easily detect that it is already happening to them. This makes it all the more important to obtain an understanding of the way this specific strategy works. When you take a look at reverse psychology closely, you will realize that its definition is a bit confusing. Note, though, that if you seriously scrutinize the definition, everything will start making sense. In reverse psychology, you are attempting to make your target perform what you wish them to do by requesting to them that you should do the exact opposite of it. Many consider reverse psychology as a really effective tool and technique in manipulation and mind control. The reason is that it no longer requires you to communicate your wants and wishes directly. What you do is conceal them and ask for the opposite instead. The moment you practice reverse psychology, you will have to use words indicating what you wish the other party should do despite the fact that your actual objective is to ask them to do the opposite. Reading people. When it comes to understanding mind control and manipulation, a solid knowledge of how to read the minds of the people around you can help a lot. One crucial fact about human beings is that each one holds a unique psychological and emotional makeup. With that in mind, it is possible for you to manipulate each one for a different purpose. If you wish to manipulate or control the mind of someone, you should take time to study your target before you begin doing your most recent manipulation scheme. The goal here is to gain an understanding of the specific things that they find favorable. This is important if you want to find the perfect approach to make your target bend based on your wishes and needs. As you attempt to read people, here are the things you may discover. It is possible to play with their emotions. Several people are more prone to showcasing visible emotional responses. They are the ones who are also emotional and tend to possess a strong and high level of empathy and sympathy. Get what you want from them by playing to their emotions up to the time when they start feeling apologetic for you and surrender to their demands. You can take advantage of their guilt. You also get to manipulate the minds of people by using their strong guilt reflex. Several people were actually born in a household with restrictions. In fact, some of them end up getting punished for things that they did in the past, even minor ones. For anyone who has a childhood like that, it is possible for them to feel guilty almost all the time. If you are dealing with such people, then what you can do to them is obvious. That is taking advantage of their guilt. You have to make them harbor guilt because of not giving in to your demands. You can implement the rational approach. The reason is that several people tend to receive the rational approach more. In case you have a logically minded friend who always seems to read the news and requires pieces of evidence and facts before the decision-making process, then it is highly recommended that you utilize calm persuasion as a means of making them agree with you. With all these pieces of knowledge and important information, You will be able to master the act of reading people and practice manipulation and dark psychology using what's inside the minds of your target. This knowledge will also serve as your shield in case someone does this to you. Covert hypnosis and NLP. How to use it to persuade and manipulate others. Covert hypnosis and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, are among the most frequently used strategies in the world of persuasion and manipulation. In fact, you can see both being used by people who want to get something from others. They may have been doing this as part of their persuasion or manipulation approaches consciously. There are also cases when it is done unconsciously or consciously, as part of their habits, making it quite hard to change. Now the question is whether or not you want to be more adept when it comes to covert hypnosis and NLP. You may also want to know the ins and outs of how they work. If that is the case, use this ebook as your guide. How does NLP work? Hypnosis and NLP actually work differently, although there are cases when people use the two together to achieve the specific results they are aiming for. Basically, NLP makes use of technologies that have a fair share of conscious and unconscious participation. It is basically a form of cognitive psychological art. The idea behind the way NLP works is how neurological processes, learned language, and behavioral patterns are tightly connected with each other. This detected connection is one reason why many keep on studying the workings of the mind and how to use neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, to alter the way people think and behave as well as reach their ultimate goals. One thing that NLP can do is serve a creative and innovative approach that is applicable in various fronts, namely communication, psychotherapy, and personal development. Here, you will learn a few practical language skills that will surely be of help in enhancing the way you communicate with others and improve your mind or mental state. NLP and covert hypnosis. One thing that was discovered about NLP is that it is actually a form of covert and direct hypnosis. It is covert in the sense that a lot of people who perform NLP are actually unaware that they are practicing it along with hypnosis. In fact, modern hypnotherapy's grandfather, Milton H. Erickson, contributed greatly to developing NLP. So basically, there is what we call covert NLP in hypnosis, which takes place when your goal is to acquire something from anyone who may be unwilling to give such a thing. Despite the unwillingness, you still attempt to get whatever it is you want, but without putting too much pressure and strength. What you will be using here would be your language skills, the one that will work in persuading others and sometimes controlling their mind and manipulating them to go on your side. Now, another important question is why do experts classify this technique as hypnotic language? The reason is that each time words come out of your mouth with the goal of influencing or persuading someone, covert NLP is already in practice. It is different from overt, which is a more suitable method to gaining what you want if your target already has deep trust and respect in you, or if they already perceive you as someone with authority. The covert approach is more applicable in several situations where persuasion and influence are necessary, since only a few have supreme credibility and authority that those around them will already trust them the first time they meet. Covert is more general since most, if not all, are trying to convince people to do something even if they are still unaware of who they are talking to. With the help of hidden language brought on to you by covert NLP and hypnosis, you can somewhat bypass any inadequacy in social trust and proof that you do not own yet. In other words, the use of covert NLP or hypnosis language will help you develop a kind of influence that those around you may find as trustworthy. How to use covert hypnosis and NLP. Now let's learn a couple of techniques that will help you use this concept in the world of manipulation, persuasion, and mind control. A viable rule to remember is to be respectful of people's limitations. By practicing this kind of respect, you will find it easier to hypnotize them in a covert manner. For instance, let's say that you are utilizing specific hypnotic phrases while aiming to persuade someone to succumb to change during therapy. You may use words and phrases like, "I'm wondering if it would really be easy for you to overcome your fear today," or Do you think it's more fun and fulfilling to envision yourself having a high level of confidence in everything you do? Make sure that your target does not end up feeling like your attention to them is only brief and fleeting, since your goal is to wait for an opportunity to use hypnotic language. The reason is that you may miss your chance to persuade and influence them if they feel that way. Also, take note that if those around you resist the kind of change you wish to produce within, it could be that you did not get their complete trust yet, or they are still afraid to alter their limitations. You have a better chance of succeeding if you empathize with them or appreciate their limitations and fears. You should show them that behavior even if you feel like their arguments and reasons for their inability to change are nonsense and stupid. Appreciate and respect them and tell them how much you understand their thoughts and behaviors. This should help you earn their trust, which will pave the way for you to begin using hypnotic stories or commands and use their subconscious mind as your target. Your goal should be to establish trust and credibility to prevent your target from resisting whatever you tell them. You no longer have to worry about them searching for counter-arguments just so they can dispute the words you say to them. There is also a better chance for you to succeed in using covert NLP and hypnosis with these tactics. Use questions to hide or conceal any persuasive language. One fact about questions is that they tend to have more power over plain statements. Note that statements aim to assert or emphasize a truth. That is regardless if your target believes you or not. Meanwhile, questions compel your target indirectly to search for viable reasons within themselves that will help them believe in what you are saying. The good news is that there are several effective ways for you to utilize covert NLP questions when it comes to persuasion. The easiest and simplest one, though, involves the commitment to ask 2 questions prior to changing where the thoughts of your targets go. For example, if you are trying to debate which one is better between a vegan diet and a meal-based one, you should consider raising a couple of soft questions rather than just telling your subject that the best option is the vegan diet and any other diet plan is wrong. The 2 questions you may ask are the following. May I ask you for your source as to why you think meat is beneficial? That's good to hear. Do you have information as to where the scientist you mentioned performed this research and studies on the positive effects of meat? The soft questions we are talking about here should not attack one's belief. Your goal for raising such questions is to make them understand the subject better. After listening intently and carefully to the provided answers, you will have an idea of how you should alter their thoughts' direction through hypnotic language. For example, you can reiterate how interesting their perspective is despite the fact that your opinion is a bit different. You can then move on to saying politely that you are willing to expose them and show a few facts that may cause them to reconsider their position a bit. If they agree, you can start presenting the facts with the end goal of altering or changing their position after. This particular example shows how useful pacing and leading are in changing one's opinion and position on certain things. It also utilizes a post-hypnotic suggestion, which is further emphasized by the use of after, a temporal predicate. Disguise the language in accordance with their preference. This can significantly help you, especially if you are still attempting to earn the trust of someone you know mainly because the two of you are unfamiliar with each other. In that case, a good starting point would be letting them hear whatever it is that they want. To start, explain the reason why you have the same opinion and position as them. It also helps to refer to a few stories that emphasize your respect for those who have similar views as them and who talk like them. If you are talking to someone whose overall mood and personality are excited and extremely energetic, then you have to try matching this energy. For those who are kind of slow, causing them to take more time than usual before they can provide their answer, slowing down to match their pace is also a must. During the start of your talks and conversations, consider yourself as their mirror. In other words, it is highly recommended to talk to them depending on the exact things they intend to hear from you. Once you notice that you have already earned their trust and they start treating you as a friend, you can begin to use hypnotic stories and language designed to make them have a drastic change of mind. Reduce the use of indirect language. After noticing that they already start following you and listening to your opinions, you can lessen the number of times you use indirect language. Keep in mind that indirect persuasion becomes necessary only when a sort of resistance, fear, or anger is seen against the beliefs and ideas you want to present to them and make them believe. Observe intently, so you will be able to sense right away once they begin to agree on your position too, and enjoy your discussions. If they begin to look at you more intently with wide and curious eyes, you can stop playing the game gradually. The goal is to solidify your position since there is a chance that they are already on your side. In this case, you can begin using commanding and assertive language. Some powerful and authoritative phrases you can use in this case are, "You can agree with me now because of this particular reason," or "I am aware of what is good for you, so I would like to tell you that this." Aside from a couple of tactics for using covert NLP and hypnosis already mentioned here, you should also avoid the common mistakes of those who are starting to use NLP. That is their seeming tendency to build rapport forever. Note that once you have already established rapport, you do not have to cultivate it more. Begin to be more authoritative and assertive with your suggestions and commands when you reach this stage. This way, you can take advantage of the innate ability of humans to change rapidly and agree with you. Subliminal persuasion techniques. How to use it to persuade others to be on your side. Finally, we are at the last chapter of this book. Here, you will get introduced to another effective technique for persuasion and manipulation: subliminal persuasion. Basically, this whole technique requires you to use messages with real meanings that you have to cloak or hide so you can gain control and influence on the behaviors and thoughts of your target. The messages used here take advantage of visuals, like words and pictures, with the ultimate goal of evoking emotions. Many practitioners of subliminal persuasion say that it is so effective that it makes them feel like they possess some sort of a superpower. The reason is that it truly works as far as persuading others to be on your side is concerned. What are the different subliminal persuasion techniques? The word subliminal, especially when used in the world of persuasion, manipulation, and dark psychology, corresponds to beneath consciousness. In other words, subliminal persuasion is all about influencing and controlling someone at a certain level that is below their perception when they are conscious. This technique also affects people beyond words, as its strength is behind or beneath the words that come out of your mouth. Subliminal persuasion is so powerful that you can see it being used in the field of advertising. You can also apply it in other areas of your life where you think persuasion and manipulation will be of use. To start using subliminal persuasion, here are just a few of many tactics and techniques that will surely help you take full advantage of the concept. Framing. One subliminal technique that is effective and applicable in almost all situations is framing. In this technique, you will have to word something in such a way that it can change or influence the decision of a person. Let's say you were selling a table. In this case, you should not directly ask your prospective customer if they intend to buy a table from you. It would be best to reframe your question instead by asking what they prefer between 2 to 3 types of tables that you are selling. Example, do you want this wooden table or this glass table? The reframed question is more persuasive as it already holds an assumption that the person you are talking to has already decided to buy a table and is already in the stage of choosing which type. This will further influence him to buy from you. Mirroring. In this technique, you will have to mimic or follow one's body language. Note, though, that mirroring does not just encompass actions. You can also implement it using words and language. In this case, you can use the specific words used by someone as well as their accent. This form of mirroring falls under the subliminal persuasion technique, which many consider very powerful and effective. Also take note that mirroring the posture, gesture, and language of someone works effectively when it comes to building rapport. This ultimately aims to demonstrate that both parties are on the same level, which means you can easily grasp and understand everything they tell you. With that, they will surely feel more comfortable with you, so expect them to open up with worries. Just make sure that when mirroring, you don't end up becoming too obvious that they will immediately catch what you are doing. Inflections and intonations. Subliminal persuasion also allows you to use what we call inflections and intonations. Note that your words will affect and influence people the way you want to with the help of the right volume, inflection, intonation, and intensity of voice. If you are still unfamiliar with inflection, then be aware that it happens when your voice tends to rise and fall gently as you speak a syllable or word. Meanwhile, intonation happens when your pitch either rises or falls within a sentence or phrase. Take advantage of both inflection and intonation by carefully using them on specific words to persuade and influence people. For instance, speak to them in a whisper. It should be as if you are genuinely willing to share a secret with them. Example, I'm willing to give you a 20% discount on this item, but promise me you will not let anyone know about it. Can I count on you to keep this between us? This will make them feel special and valued since you are sharing a secret with them. You can show them that you have confidence in them, which boosts your chance of cultivating rapport and earning their trust. This will serve as your instrument to influence them to do the act that you intend them to do. Hypermnesia. In this particular subliminal persuasion technique, you will have to influence and persuade those around you to be reminded of the things you wish them to recall all the time. Here, you will need to use a few memory words and tricks to increase their chance of remembering something. One example is telling them that they will be unable to forget how incredible your product is. You may also use the following powerful phrases when attempting to implement hypermnesia. It is not possible to forget. You can't remove this from your mind. You will remember this forever. Irresistible suggestions. This technique requires you to set expectations designed to condition the mind of the people you are dealing with. Once you have done that, the mind will work on confirming the suggestion. As an example, you can tell someone how they will love a particular item. Deliver this message sincerely and ensure that you inject genuine enthusiasm into it, so the receiver will really believe it. This can make this subliminal persuasion technique successful. Frequent nodding. If there is a favor that you wish to ask someone, nodding frequently as you talk can help. Note that nodding while talking and listening to someone increases the likelihood of reaching a mutual agreement. Also, it was discovered that frequent nodding in front of someone can also result in them mimicking the act. You can even expect this to happen naturally, as humans are known for their innate ability to mimic behaviors, specifically those with positive meanings. With that in mind, if you wish to persuade or convince someone to do something, you should consider nodding regularly throughout the entire conversation. This will also prompt them to begin agreeing with you in the things you say unconsciously. Ethical considerations. I'm sure that by now you are already aware that there are several instances when subliminal persuasion utilizes techniques that aim to influence and persuade others without them knowing about it. This is the reason why it somewhat raises substantial ethical concerns. Now, are you really interested in using subliminal persuasion as well as the other dark psychology techniques indicated in this book, but are worried about how you can do it while conforming to ethics? If you answered yes, then be prepared to research and understand important ethical considerations in dark psychology that you should never neglect. Practice the techniques here in such a way that you are not endangering anyone. So here are the primary ethical considerations you should keep in mind as you practice dark psychology and subliminal persuasion. Harm. In general, dark psychology techniques, including subliminal persuasion, may put someone in grave danger if you are not careful in implementing them. One possible effect of it would be psychological and emotional trauma. Think about this possible effect before you ever practice dark psychology. Note that you can persuade or manipulate someone, but ensure that you still think of their overall well-being. Consent. As much as possible, use the techniques associated with dark psychology with the consent of someone. Note that the use of such tactics without their consent may violate their dignity and autonomy. With that said, you should work on obtaining informed and reasonable consent from your target before you put them under extreme psychological manipulation. Professional standards. If you are working in the psychology industry, then you are probably aware of how dark psychology techniques are in line with the ethical and professional guidelines and standards set for all psychologists. Exert an effort to learn about these guidelines and standards, comprehend them, and conform to them no matter what. This is so you can keep the respect and trust of those around you. Justice and fairness. If possible, avoid using the techniques in dark psychology to attain an unreasonable and unfair advantage over other people. Otherwise, you will be violating the rules and principles of justice and fairness. The ultimate secret to succeeding in using dark psychology or fighting it is to treat those around you with dignity, empathy, and respect while encouraging justice and equity in every interaction. By keeping in mind all these ethical standards and considerations, you will be on your way toward practicing dark psychology and subliminal persuasion without causing extreme harm to your target. It also helps to become well-versed in this industry, which is a good way to fight against manipulators and dark psychology users who may use the techniques to endanger you or your loved ones. Conclusion. Congratulations! You have finally finished this book about dark psychology. By now, you have already garnered substantial knowledge about dark psychology and the specific fields and areas surrounding it. These include manipulation, persuasion, and mind control. Based on the information you learned from this comprehensive book, it's now easy to protect and defend yourself from dark psychology practitioners who are attempting to manipulate, control, and persuade you. Being well-versed in this field makes you more capable of protecting yourself from those who may exploit, abuse, and endanger you. The learnings you gained here will also help you practice dark psychology and manipulation correctly. You are now skilled in using it to your best advantage without completely neglecting the welfare and well-being of those you interact with. Sooner or later, you can see yourself starting to influence and control situations, counter and detect manipulations, and achieve what you genuinely desire from life with this book as your guide.
We appreciate you tuning in to one of our captivating audiobooks. For more immersive experiences, here is another audiobook we're certain you'll enjoy. Don't forget to show your support by liking this video, sharing what you loved about this audiobook in the comments section below, and subscribing for more captivating audiobooks like this. Thanks for being a part of our audiobook community.